Hi guys, and welcome back to Biologue. Hope you're having a great day and a great week. Today's video is going to be about varying questions on different topics for IGCSE biology. So we're going to give an overview of possibly similar questions that could come. So this will give you an idea of what kind of questions can come, and because these questions actually revolve around the basic idea of the entire topic itself, right? So a lot of the questions will come in and around the same concepts. So this is how we're actually going to do these questions today. If you like this video, do like, share and subscribe to Biologue. And with that being said, let's get on to these topic wise questions which I have compiled to give you guys a full overview of the entire syllabus. Alright, so these are the questions. Let's start off with the first one. Sickle cell anemia is a disease that reduces the delivery of oxygen to tissues. Explain why. So, sickle cell anemia can actually have two types of questions. Broadly, there are these two types of questions. Either you can be asked about why sickle cell anemia reduces the oxygen carrying capacity of red blood cells, or you can be asked what is the cause of sickle cell anemia. And when they ask you the cause of sickle cell anemia, they are asking you to explain in terms of genes. So explain in terms of the mutation. What is a mutation? How is it happening? Where is it happening? Okay. But why is it reducing the delivery of oxygen? That is related to the shape of the red blood cells, what happens to the hemoglobin, things of that nature. So let us look at the first question. It is asking you, why is it reducing the delivery of oxygen to the tissues? Okay, so hemoglobin becomes abnormal or rigid. Abnormal is the correct term to use here. Alright, so hemoglobin becomes abnormal. This abnormal hemoglobin carries lesser oxygen than normal hemoglobin. So, the transport of oxygen is lesser. Red blood cells become sickle shaped, right? If you don't know what sickle shaped is, it's somewhat like this, like they lose their original shape. Normally, red blood cells will have a biconcave disc shaped cell. This is a good red blood cell, alright? This portion, this is a good red blood cell, but this is a sickle cell which actually has a very small surface area, and that is why the oxygen carrying capacity is very less. So red blood cells become sickle shaped. These sickle shaped cells, what they do is they clot in the blood vessels and they reduce the oxygen supply. So they reduce the flow of healthy blood. Why is this oxygen supply reducing? Because sickle cells clot in the blood vessels, and this reduces the flow of healthy blood, reducing the transportation of oxygen or oxygen carrying capacity. Okay, moving on to the next question. So now this is the type of question, right? Describe the cause of sickle cell anemia. These are the two main questions that can come under sickle cell anemia. I mean, there are lots more, but this is what is very common in papers. So describe the cause of sickle cell anemia. What you should know is in terms of the genes, right? It is because of a mutation. Now, what is a mutation? You have to explain that. A mutation is a change in the base sequence of DNA, okay? And where does this mutation happen? This mutation happens in the allele for hemoglobin. Alright, so it is caused by a mutation which is a change in the base sequence of DNA, and this mutation is caused in the allele for hemoglobin. So when people have sickle cell anemia, they inherit the allele for sickle cell anemia. They inherit the allele for this abnormal hemoglobin. Okay, right, they inherit the allele for mutated hemoglobin or sickle cell anemia. Why do people get the sickle cell anemia? Because it is a recessive trait, right? This allele is recessive. So having the recessive allele, being homozygous, it's called homozygous recessive. Having the recessive allele or being homozygous recessive will cause you to have sickle cell anemia. And this sickle cell anemia in turn produces abnormal hemoglobin, and the red blood cells will have a sickle shape, reducing the oxygen carrying capacity. Okay, so how would you frame an answer like this? Frame it like this. So start off by saying sickle cell anemia is caused because of a mutation which is a change in the base sequence of DNA in the allele for hemoglobin. Full stop. This is because people inherit the allele for sickle cell anemia and have the recessive allele or are homozygous recessive. Okay, hence people who have sickle cell anemia produce abnormal hemoglobin and their red blood cells have sickle shape. So the oxygen carrying capacity is reduced. Alright, moving on to the next question. Captive breeding programs. So some captive breeding programs involve a very small number of animals. Outline the disadvantages of such programs. Such programs means the emphasis is on the programs that have very small number of animals. This is the emphasis. Okay, so they may force people to inbreed animals, right? So because obviously you're keeping the animals in captivity, you cannot breed them elsewhere. So you have to breed the animals in captivity with others who are in captivity. So you have to inbreed. That's your only option, right? So it may force you to inbreed the animals. And what does inbreeding cause? Inbreeding causes lesser genetic variation. So inbreeding may reduce the genetic variation because you are inbreeding the same type of animal. There is no variation by breeding it with a animal of, let's say, another species. It should be of the same species but a different type of animal. So that is why inbreeding reduces genetic variation. Due to this, right, because of lesser genetic variation, organisms may be unable to adapt to changes in their environment. So it reduces the fitness. It's called reducing the fitness of the organism. Because they are unable to adapt to changes in the environment, they may be unable to survive and reproduce in their environment. So by natural selection, their fitness decreases. Okay. By natural selection, the fitness decreases. So there may be high competition for food, water and supply, which may lead to local extinction. Alright, sorry for the abrupt cuts in between the video. So I have found this question. It's a pretty important question because it's kind of like, it's not very difficult as such, but it consists of a lot of marks. It asks you to kind of display your knowledge of a lot of concepts. So I thought that this would be a good video to actually put this question in. So let's begin. The question asks you to describe what happens to carbohydrates in the human body between ingestion and assimilation in the liver. So how will you do this? First off, they say ingestion and assimilation. So let us broadly divide this. Alright, this entire thing consists of, firstly you have to talk about ingestion itself. Ingestion, digestion, absorption and assimilation. Okay, these are the main things. In the digestion, you have to talk about mechanical digestion and chemical digestion. You have to talk about both of them. Now, first off, if we talk about ingestion occurs in the mouth, right? Because this is where the mechanical digestion occurs. It's known as mastication or mechanical digestion, but mechanical digestion is a better term to use. So, ingestion occurs in the mouth, where mechanical digestion happens by the usage of teeth. You have to mention by the usage of teeth because the teeth break down, they chew the food, they grind the food, right? So teeth like molars and premolars to grind the food, or you can even say chew the food. Okay. Secondly, chemical digestion occurs because salivary glands will secrete salivary amylase. And what does salivary amylase do? You can actually add this point here. For example, the amylase will break down starch to maltose. Okay, you may add that point over there. Now the second thing is, so large insoluble molecules are broken down into small soluble molecules. Yes, this is basically the definition of chemical digestion. So you should mention what chemical digestion is, what happens in the chemical digestion. That chemical digestion occurs, and this is where large insoluble molecules are broken down into small soluble molecules, and so the enzymes like salivary amylase, which is secreted by the salivary glands, will break down starch to maltose. The next point talks about how the food will then go into the small intestine, and then what happens in the small intestine? Absorption, right? That's the main point about small intestine. So, and what enzyme is there in the small intestine? It is the maltase. It is the maltase. So maltase breaks down maltose to glucose. Okay. Then as the food goes into the small intestine, maltose on the epithelial lining or the epithelium of the small intestine breaks down the maltose to glucose, right? Now in the small intestine, what will happen? Again, absorption. So how is this absorption happening? It's because of the villi and the microvilli, right? The villi or the microvilli increases. You can even talk about microvilli here. Okay, villi or the microvilli increases the surface area for absorption of food, and in the liver what happens then? Last stage of the entire process is assimilation, right? Apart from egestion, obviously, because here they're asking you only till assimilation. You're going to talk about assimilation as the last part. So assimilation happens where? It happens in the liver. So in the liver, assimilation happens, and this is where the glucose is converted into glycogen and is stored, okay, for future use. This future use could be, let's say, in case the sugar levels go down. If the glucose level, blood glucose level or blood sugar level goes down, then the glycogen is converted to glucose, okay, by secretion of glucagon. That's the enzyme. Alright, sorry for the abrupt cut there. So let's move on to the next question. Describe the similarities and differences between marasmus and kwashiorkor. Okay, so the similarities we know is that marasmus and kwashiorkor are both caused because of protein energy deficiency. They are known as protein energy malnutrition, right? It's a disease caused because of deficiency of protein, that is for sure, okay? So both are caused by protein energy deficiency. That is your first point. So let us write that down. Both are caused by protein energy deficiency. The second point could actually be that what is the similarity, right? Second point could be that both actually affect children. Mainly and primarily both affect children, okay? So both affect children primarily. So those are your 2 points, 2 marks over there. The difference is that in marasmus it typically leads to just protein. It actually in marasmus it's both protein and carbohydrate. In marasmus, I'm not really framing an answer here, but this is, these points should be included in the answer. You should frame it separately and differently, but these are the points that should be included. Marasmus is protein and carbohydrate deficiency, but kwashiorkor is only protein deficiency. Kwashiorkor is only protein deficiency. Obviously, the answer should be framed a little more differently. It should be structured better. But this is the point, right? In marasmus, it is protein and carbohydrate deficiency. But in kwashiorkor, it is only protein deficiency. You can also mention some of the symptoms that people face when they have marasmus or kwashiorkor. If it is marasmus, you can talk about symptoms like fatigue. You can talk about muscle wastage, alright? But in the case of kwashiorkor, the symptoms are different. Kwashiorkor has a very specific symptom of pot belly, alright? It's called pot belly and the specific name is edema. You don't need to know this name, but this is more appropriate. Pot belly or edema forms, and you can also say flaking of the skin and hair, but that will be only an AVP point. AVP point means just an additional point that the examiner might consider if you have not written anything else. So it's always better to write these points, okay? So both are caused by protein energy malnutrition or protein energy deficiency. Both affect children primarily. In marasmus, it is both protein and carbohydrate. In kwashiorkor, it is only protein. And marasmus, the symptoms are fatigue and muscle wastage. But in kwashiorkor, it is pot belly and thinness or flakiness of the skin and hair. Moving on to the next question now. Okay, so describe the function of arterioles in the skin. Now this is a good question. So arterioles in the skin, arterioles control the blood flow towards the surface of the skin, right? We know that because of vasoconstriction and vasodilation, we know arterioles control the blood flow towards the surface of the skin, or they control the blood flow in the capillaries near the skin surface, right? In the capillaries beneath the skin, right? Second thing is that we know, again, vasoconstriction, vasodilation, what is it a part of? It's a part of homeostasis or negative feedback, thermoregulation, temperature control, those kinds of words, or everything comes under homeostasis. So we say that arterioles help in homeostasis or negative feedback to maintain a constant temperature, okay, to maintain a constant or optimum body temperature. Yeah. Third thing, arterioles have contraction and relaxation. Exactly. So vasoconstriction, vasodilation. Contraction, when they contract, vasoconstriction happens. When they relax, vasodilation happens. Now the last one, arterioles link or they deliver blood from the arteries to the shunt vessel, right? We know that the artery and the venule is connected by the shunt vessel, right? We know this. So how is it connected? There are branches from the artery called arteriole. This arteriole connects the shunt vessel. So arterioles connect to the shunt vessel directly. There is no need for capillaries. It directly bypasses the capillaries. The need for capillaries is not there. That's why we are using a shunt vessel to directly connect the arteries to the veins by connecting the arterioles to the venules. Okay, moving on to the next question. Describe the functions of lymph nodes in the lymphatic vessel or lymphatic system. Alright. So firstly, lymph nodes. Lymph nodes contain the lymphocytes. Lymphocytes are cells that help in the defense mechanism against pathogens. Okay, so they contain lymphocytes. Lymphocytes produce antibodies. That is your first point. Second point is it helps gain active immunity, right? It helps gain active immunity against pathogens. Active immunity is where the antibodies are actively being produced by the WBCs, by the white blood cells or by the lymphocytes. So yeah, this is a pretty small question, but usually there are lots of questions that revolve around the idea of lymphatic vessel, lymph node, lacteals, or you should know the entire lymphatic system well. So there are lots of questions that revolve around that topic. Next, explain how fish stocks can be conserved by restocking. By restocking is the key word. This is the key word here. Okay, restocking. Firstly, by captive breeding programs. We know what captive breeding is. Breeding in captivity, breeding in a secluded area, not actually breeding it in its natural habitat, okay, with controlled conditions. This is the first point, correct? Second point is reintroduction into the wild, which is a natural habitat like lakes and rivers, okay. No catch zones or protected or nursery areas, right? Protected or nursery areas. Nursery areas is where you are going to breed or grow the young fish, okay, so that these fish are able to grow, and once they grow they are able to survive and reproduce at least until the reproductive age. That is why the population numbers are increasing, right? Population numbers increase when you allow the organism to survive and reproduce. So they should be able to be bred till their reproductive age, till the reproductive age or till maturity. Now the fourth point, limit fishing by placing fines or quotas, right? Quotas are basically a physical limit on the amount that can be fished, okay. It's a limit. It's a physical limit to the amount of quantity or the quantity of the fish that can be fished. So actually it is kind of preventing overfishing, okay. It prevents overfishing. Alright, that's it for today's video, guys. I hope you liked it. If you did, do like, share and subscribe to Biologue. I have a lot of playlists with different topics on IGCSE biology. I have the playlist on the exam prep guide, as well as the playlist for separate topics of IGCSE biology, and the new playlist for past paper series, which covers most of the important topics that IGCSE biology requires you to know. So that's it for today's video. I hope you liked it. If you did, like, share and subscribe to Biologue, and with that I will see you guys in my next video. Have a great day.